Alright, g'day guys. So my lesson that I'm covering is from lesson 7. That's on the far right. It says CSS corners, borders, and shadows. Corners and borders and shadows. Oh my. So the first one is really simple. It's just border dash radius, and then you put the amount of pixels for the corner, and that part. So let's have a look at it. For my CSS, which I'll actually let's look at the HTML first. I've just got a basic div right there. The pre part is this part of the code, so we won't open those up, but all three of them are simply just a div. I've given them a different class so that I can quantify them and give them different information. So yeah, let's have a look at the CSS. So I've got them separated down here. Here's my corners one. Should really be at the top of those three, but doesn't matter. So border dash radius 50. So that's what I've got here. Now we can change that to whatever we want. So let's make that like 9. I guess you can't tell once it gets to a certain point. Let's make it 10. So 10 is a lot smaller. 1 is not noticeable at all. 100, I mean, you reach a point of diminishing returns when you hit a certain point. So I'm not exactly sure what that is. I think that's 50 is the point of diminishing returns. There you go. But it also depends on how big your shape is. So if your shape is larger, then that point will be bigger. So because my height of my object is 100 points, 50 is the middle point, so that'll be as far in as my object goes. So if I make this, let's say I make my object 200, see it doesn't cap out right there. So that diminishing return point would then probably be 100. So that's the point where you can't get it curved anymore without where it wouldn't be noticeable. So let's put it back how it was. That's at 100, and we're sweet. I love this live preview thing, it's awesome. So that's corners. Corners are pretty easy. Now let's look at borders. Now borders are pretty simple as well. But I've gone through and I've made a border around the object and a border around the text. The text is a lot more complicated because there's not a... There used to be a supported way to do it, but now you have to do some roundabout method, as you can see here. So let's have a look at that. So under borders, I've got the same object style right there as I did with the corners, and I'll have the same under shadows. And so we can change that and whatever. So with borders, we literally have just selected 1 pixel. Let me refresh over here just so you can see it. 1 pixel red. We can make that color whatever we want. We can go grey, but obviously we can't see it very well. Blue. And there's like a dark royal blue. You can kind of see it. Or you can do HTML. Let's say 101. Or hang on. Let's RGB. So red is the first one. So F00. So we're back on red. So... Or you can also add extra letters if you want to. FF000. So depending on however you want to do it, there's some customizable room there. And the same will be true with shadows when we get there. As you can see down here, I've got red shadows and yeah. So we'll go into that in a minute. And also here, that's the same thing right there. So wherever you see the word written for a color, you can also substitute that for HTML. Sorry, not HTML. Yes, no. Yeah, HTML color values. Yes. Alright, so RGB color values, not HTML. I'm frazzled. Alright, so going back to this part here, so 1 pixel solid that. Now we can change solid to a bunch of different things. Solid doesn't have to be solid, it could be dashed. So now we have a dashed red line. I went with red because it's easier to see, and we can change how big that is so it's even more easy to see. There we go, nice big dashed line. Let's go for a double line. Double line, real easy. And there's a bunch of different ones. There's let me see what they are. Let me pull it back up. It's border dash style. Yeah, there we are, border style. And here's all the different ones you can do. So dashed, dotted, double, groove, hidden, inherit, inset, none, outset, ridge, solid. So let's have a look at... I don't know, let's have a look at groove. That sounds kind of cool. Let's so it looks like it's kind of embedded, so it's like a cool little wave shape. Or what else have we got? Let's have a look. I think there was inset. And I suppose it would be different with different colors, but that looks like it's been pushed into the screen. So you can do a lot of cool things, and border style doesn't do anything because I have it defined right here. And even if I didn't have it defined here, it wouldn't work with this setup. That's used in a different way. So, but if you're curious what those different types are, you can also look them up on HTML Schools, which I'll have a, if I remember to, have a link in the video description. So anyway, so that's that. Let's put this back to solid because it's what I have in the example here. So 1 pixel solid red. There we go. That's back to what we had in the beginning. So this now matches that. Okay, so let's move on. So for the text is a little bit different. I had to make it bold, bolder, I guess, so it'd be more visible with the outline. But you can see that there's a black outline around my text. And the way that works is through shadows. So maybe I will go over shadows and then come back to this just so that it makes a bit more sense. Because I feel like I'll be tripping myself up trying to explain shadows before I've explained shadows. So just for now, just understand that this is a way to use it using shadows without actually using shadows. So we'll explain that in just a minute. So yes, so let's move on to shadows, which is up here. Again, I should probably have ordered these backwards because they're in the reverse order here, but I might do that on my GitHub version. So again, we've just got some simple things on this one. You can see there's only two attributes here, boxed shadow and text shadow. So the text shadow is a lot simpler here, a lot simpler than this one here actually, which I'll explain in a minute. But essentially, let's go over the box shadow first. So what's going on here is we've got a bunch of different things. We've got one for which direction it faces. So like, let me refresh over here so you can see it. So as you can see, the shadow, if I can, let's make it a little bit bigger just so you can get a better idea. Let's make that 5 and 5. So if you notice, when I moved that first 5 point, that side moved across first, and then that side. So this is its horizontal position and its vertical position. So right now, if I was to put -5, you will notice it's above, or back to 5, it's below. Just keep an eye down here. So back to -5, it's above, regular 5 below. Same is true over here. -5 is on the left side, and then on the right side. So the direction of your shadow is defined there. And so that might start to make this, this might start to make a little more sense now. But we'll get into that again, like I said. So now this part here, you've got your horizontal and vertical position, but this here is your blur. So the object here is obviously not a crisp shape. So let's make that a 0. As you can see, now it's just 2 boxes. But as I add a 1, it starts to blur those edges. If I do a 2, it's even more blurred, more, you know, it blurs it a lot more each time you add a different number. And you can change the color here. Again, it can be RGB, or it can be just straight colors. Let's go red. So a red shadow to go with our red coloration everywhere else, and because it's more noticeable on this this layout. Let's go back to gray. I think it was EY. Yes. I always forget between the British and the American version. I guess the British and Australian version versus the American version. Anyway, so we have that. Now, another thing to note is you can add multiple shadow effects to the same object. So if I was to add a comma, which you'll notice on here, there's a bunch of commas, I can do the same kind of things. Let's do this copy, just for the interest factor. Let's go -5 and -5. So there's 2 shadows now. I have a shadow in 2 different directions. And now you're starting to probably see how I did the text border, because I now have a shadow on this side and a shadow on this side. So let's make this one blue. So it's a blue shadow going that way and a grey shadow going that way. Let's make it even more interesting. Let's put another comma and go negative on this side, but not on the other side. Let's make this green. So there's a green one there. It's behind everything, but it's still there. And then one more. Let's make one more. So let's make this. We got red. So red RGB. And so we'll make the vertical one negative this time. Whoops, wrong one. Oh, I'm the wrong. There we are. So now we have a box, a complete box around the entire thing. So let's have some fun with it. So if I make this black, and then this black, and this black, and this black, you'll notice I have a complete border around the entire thing. And if I make this 0, and that 0, and that 0, and that 0, we have just a solid black border. So that's another way of doing just a straight border, which can work for things like text. So you can add a shadow to the text in the 4 different directions, as you've seen here. So there's -1, -1. So negative, this would be going up and to the left. This would be going down and to the right. This would be going down and to the left. This would be going... Oh, I'm sorry, no, this one here would be going up and to the right, and this would be down to the left. Down to the right. So anyway, it works. And so you can see that, you know, as you can change these different colors, and it will change parts of the shadow. But you have to be careful, because as you saw here, some of them overlap, and so you'll only see part of that color. But it lets you do some pretty cool things. Like if you had a stadium type appearance of an object, let's go back to 2. So let's just do the 2 that we had. So we can do a cool little stadium effect. Let's go back to 2 and 2. Both of them black, or we can go to grey. Huh, interesting. It likes both forms of grey. And then we'll do the position as 15 and 15. Except this should also be negative. So let's go negative, negative. So negative, negative, and then positive, positive. You've got the double shadow going on, and we'll probably have to add more of a dissolve effect. So we've got just like a stadium view where you can see the shadow going off in a couple of different directions. So there's some pretty cool stuff you can do. And you know, sometimes the light is brighter on one side than the other, so we can go bright. As you can see, it's very blurred on that top part and less blurred on the other. So you can have some really cool fun with this. So let's go back to what it was before, but it kind of lets you see what you can do with CSS, and especially with having this program. It's such a great program for this kind of thing where you can mess around with it. And yeah, so the same thing is true. We can close that one now that we understand it. The same thing is exactly true with the text. So we've got our text shadow is 2 pixels to the in the horizontal right direction, and 2 pixels down, and then 4 pixels of blur in the red color. So yeah, that's basically it. So I think that's everything that needed to be covered. So I don't know if there's anything more else to cover, but thanks for watching. My name's Steve, and thanks. Yeah, see you later.